Hey people, how are you today? I am Michaela Valletta, for those of you who don't know, and also known as the Renaissance Amazon. I'm live on my IG page right now. I will save this video and repost it to my YouTube page, the Renaissance Amazon. For those of you who are unfamiliar with me, I am a trainer, a nutritionist, and I'm also a dancer and a sacred sexual educator, okay? I've committed my life to understanding all the ways to take our body to its highest level. And I'm a student of anthropology, sacred sexual knowledge, ancestral traditional ways, nature, being in touch with Mother Nature, okay? So that's just a brief synopsis on who I am if you aren't familiar. So today we're going to talk about sex today, but we're going to talk about sex with self, okay? Masturbation. Apparently this is National Masturbation Month, apparently. And so yeah, I'm gonna talk about that. Because, I feel like when it comes to sexuality, I feel like people should be comfortable with their sexuality, okay? As long as it's two consenting adults or one consenting adult, okay? I feel, you're not messing with, children or animals, okay? I feel like people should not have any guilt or shame around their sexual desires or feelings of sexual feelings and touching yourself. A lot of the world's patriarchal religions has shamed that, has shamed sexuality in general if it doesn't fit inside this narrow box. I remember years ago having a client that I was working with. He grew up a very religious Jew in New Jersey, and he was like a 30-something-year-old virgin, and he had told me he didn't even masturbate because in his belief system, it was taught to them that everything that they were trying to do in life was to get closer to God, and masturbation or sex before marriage would throw them further away from God, right? So he had, I guess if he ever had any desire to touch himself, there was a lot of guilt there. There's also a lot of people with sexual trauma, right? Which to me is so unfortunate. And I've definitely tried to understand why that's so common. Because whenever you see something a lot, you have to ask yourself why. What is the source? Is this coming from nature or is it coming from perversion, right? And if it's coming from perversion, where did that come from? And in my life and the people who come up to me, because I haven't, experienced that, but many people who've told me some crazy sexual trauma stories of molestation in their childhood, a lot of times they grew up in religious families. I'm not going to say all the time, and I'm not going to say all religious families are guilty of this, but I've heard some crazy stories from people who grew up in very religious upbringings, whether it be Christianity, Islam, Judaism, or Jehovah's Witness or whatever. As kids, it's normal and natural for kids to touch themselves, okay? So to me, when I think about that, it makes me have even more compassion and empathy. I mean, not that I didn't have compassion and empathy, but it just makes me, let me not say that. It makes me more disturbed, even more disturbed. If you couldn't be disturbed enough at the thought of people touching kids, it disturbs me even more when I think about, kids, naturally are going to touch themselves and have sexual feelings. It's your body. You touch your body, whatever. You're like, oh, this feels good. And if you're around a grown person who is taking advantage of that, at that time, that I can definitely see how that can be horribly confusing and traumatic for kids, and which carries on into their adulthood. So I had to say that because I don't want to, as I talk about this subject, I don't want to act as if that's not the case for a lot of people, which can then also affect how they feel about sex and sexuality and stuff like that. So with that being said, I remember being a little girl and, I was attracted to my female best friend, and we used to hump each other all the time, grind on each other, and I was having orgasms, but I didn't know what an orgasm was, and then I would do the same thing by myself, and I just knew it felt good. I didn't know what an orgasm was, and I wasn't necessarily thinking about sex, but these are just things that, when I talk to men and women, they talk about when they were a kid, you just naturally discover these things. So, and I feel like it's important, there's a lot of women who have orgasmic issues, right? I've known women who've had a couple kids and never had an orgasm. I feel like, there's a few reasons for that. They could have blockages due to trauma. But even, independent of that, and I have to keep mentioning the trauma because in my work with people, I've noticed that to be a common thing. And I have to acknowledge that can play a role. But besides that, I feel like, knowing yourself and knowing what pleases you. Like if you should be able to have an orgasm on your own. I've never met a man who said that they've never had an orgasm before, but women, yes, and so I feel like, you shouldn't be dependent. Sometimes you can be with a partner who doesn't have sexual skills, and that's valid. But I think that if you have not had an orgasm and can't give yourself an orgasm, then that's something to think about and work on, right? You want to work on becoming more sensitive. Also, I think masturbation can be a great tool, okay, to prevent people from doing things, because sometimes when your sexual energy is so built up, you might end up messing with somebody that it might take you out of your right mind a little bit. So maybe you mess with somebody that you didn't really want to mess with, but you were so aroused at the moment and you needed some release. So if you give that release to yourself, then maybe you can, cooler heads prevail. Maybe you won't make the worst decisions. I think that self-pleasure is super important. Me personally, I always prefer to connect with somebody over masturbation because I just feel like it feels better. It's like massaging yourself. You can massage yourself and massage some stuff into your leg, but it doesn't feel as good as somebody else does it, right? But at the same time, like I could never understand women who say that they didn't masturbate because I'm like, don't you ever just get so horny that you just have to? Like, I know for me, like, there's times I'm just so horny that, if there's nobody around, like, I'm going to have to do something. I can't just do that. So I've known women who act like, masturbation is something they have to put in their schedule to try to make themselves do. For me, it's something that if I just feel aroused enough, I'm like, okay, nobody's here to put my fire out, then I have to do it for myself. It's not something that I schedule or have to force myself to do. So I feel like so I can never understand when women would say they just didn't do it at all. Like I just still can't understand it. I don't know if that's suppression or if they just never get aroused enough to want to do that. I don't really get it. So any women who don't masturbate, if you want to add your 2 cents as to why, because, sharing is caring. I'm always interested in learning. I just know I don't understand it. Last night I was in a Clubhouse conversation and someone had asked about, we were talking about cultivating sexual energy, and a young woman had asked about, cultivating sexual energy without having a partner. Like, is that possible? And it definitely is. Like, the thing is that even if you're not having sex, people could be celibate for a variety of reasons. And I will say that, for me as a teenager, when everybody around me was having sex, I was like, first of all, I was like a goody two shoes. And I was a good student, I was an athlete, I was a dancer. I wasn't trying to be grown. So even when boys were like pressuring me to have sex, I had it in my mind that I will not do that before a certain age. I didn't care how much I had a crush on him. I didn't do it, but I was masturbating, okay? And so I feel like, again, having that when you know how to pleasure yourself and you know how to deal with your own arousal, as a young person, it may not rush you into sex. I don't know, it's just a theory, okay? So, but regardless of whether or not you have a partner, it's important to move your sexual energy. Because, when I say I'm a sacred sexual educator, sexuality is sacred, meaning that it is connected to the divine, but not in a way of, oh, you shouldn't be sexual with people and you need to hide your sexuality. No. That's not what it means. Sexuality, our sexual energy is connected to our spiritual energy, our chi, and our life force, okay? It's connected to the health of our internal organs. It's connected to the health of our hormones, okay? There's a lot of hormonal things that happen when we orgasm, release of hormones that help our health, that help our mental health. So the Taoists in ancient China, this is something that I've been studying for like over 16 years now. They spent years researching the effects of certain sexual acts, and the effects on our spiritual health and our physical health, okay? And talking about how sexuality and spirituality are of the same continuum. And your sexual energy and vitality has everything to do with your life force and your chi, the health of your internal organs, okay, as well. And so this is the reason why, even if you are celibate and you're not having sex with anybody, it's still important to move the orgasmic energy, to build up sexual energy and move it. Now, when it comes to, because I also, some of you might know about the class I teach to women, sensual strength training. And I also have a class for men called Kundalini strength training. I don't teach it as much. Usually when I work with men, it's more one-on-one, because I find that men are not so class-oriented with that. But, basically, being in a yang, men are in yang bodies, okay? Even though some men may have more yin than yang energy, just being a man, you're in a yang body. So when men release, okay, they throw, they release energy, they ejaculate, they're throwing energy outside of themselves, they're losing chi, okay? So in order for men to balance their yang with yin, they have to hold back more, okay? To me, that doesn't mean not being aroused. It means being aroused, but not always letting it be released, okay? Because again, building up that sexual energy helps to build your chi. So you can build it up and store it and not always release it. For women, being in yin bodies, okay, so that, some women have a lot more yang energy than yin energy, but just being in a female body, we're yin because we, because of our sexual organs. Men's sexual organs are external, female sexual organs are internal as well. So for us to balance our yin with yang, we need to release more. And you look at ancient art all around the world, you have women with their legs wide open, whether it be in Africa, in the Americas, in South America, in Asia. In Europe, you have depictions of women with their legs wide open, and sometimes with a baby's head coming out, sometimes with fluid coming out, sometimes with nothing coming out, okay? Women, but society and patriarchal religion tells women, keep your legs closed, keep your legs closed, keep your legs closed, and hold it in, when really it's the opposite. Men are the ones that need to hold back from releasing so much, and women need to release more. But society teaches men to run around and spread their seed, and women to hold back, okay? So women need to be having more orgasmic orgasms and stuff like that. Now, just because a man is supposed to release less doesn't mean to me that he's not supposed to masturbate. Because a man can masturbate and not release. So you work on strengthening your sexual energy as a man by building up, like you could be looking at a stimulus, doing certain exercise, you can even touch yourself, okay, but not super rough. I feel like men who jerk off too much desensitize themselves because of the roughness of it and the friction. Just like women who use vibrators too much desensitize themselves. I used to be anti-vibrator for a long time. And, now it's like, it's okay here and there, but if a woman uses a vibrator too much, even on a regular basis, it desensitizes her. And so it's good to work on becoming more sensitive, because then gentleness, okay, and less stimulus will make you have a more intense orgasm. When you desensitize, you need a lot of roughness to have an orgasm. So men who jerk off a lot of times during sex, in order for them to come, they have to get super rough with a woman. And maybe that woman likes that, but maybe she doesn't. If you're dealing with a woman who also is sensitive and tuned in, she may not. Because a man might need such intense roughness, or he might have to pull out and really jerk himself because it's the only way he can come. And with a woman who's using a vibrator too much, then an actual tongue won't do anything for you, So, my personal opinion is better to become more sensitive and not less sensitive. And this is what the teachings of Tantra and Taoism are about. But when a man ejaculates, he's releasing and losing some chi. But men lose more of it when they are releasing it through masturbation, because when he's connecting with a partner, let's say he's connecting with a woman, when that woman orgasms, she releases the beneficial essence. Both men and women release the beneficial essence when they orgasm, okay? And the other partner absorbs it. So if a man is having sex with a woman and she orgasms, let's say, according to the Taoist, she should come twice before he comes, because then he'll absorb that beneficial essence from her before he releases his, okay? Because if you're going to lose some energy, let's gain some energy first before you lose some, right? But if you ejaculate during masturbation, you haven't gained anything, you just lost. So, so I say that to say that it's good for men to balance out how often that they do release through masturbation, okay? Because depending on the man's age and his health, depends, and also the quantity and quality of his semen. Men who are only, they're ejaculating a little bit and it's watery, you need to definitely work on your chi and definitely not be ejaculating when you're masturbating. But you can masturbate and build up the energy, channel the energy, move the energy, store the energy. And if you have certain health problems and stuff, because again, it's draining your chi and your life force, which affects your health. So that balance is different for different men depending on how old he is and what's going on with his health and the quality of his semen, quality and quantity, right? What was I going to say? There was something else. But women, the more we orgasm, the better. It's really important. So important. It's important for our health. It helps mentally. So yeah, I think I said, I feel like when I'm done with this video, there's going to be things that I meant to say that I didn't say. But I feel like I said what I wanted to say. Let me think real quick. Basically, it's National Masturbation Month, which I didn't know. So I just wanted to do a video talking about it, saying that I think it's great. Everybody should do it. It should be a part of your health practice. Of course, for me though, being with a person is always better, but we don't always have that. We don't always have people that are going to give us what we need. So it's important to cultivate in our own. And I don't think people should feel guilty about their sexuality. Some people have more sexual energy than others, or more intense sex drive than others. And other people might try to shame them and call them a sex addict or whatever. I just feel like we're sexual beings. We all come from sex. We've had erotic art since the beginning of time. And I think that the more you cultivate your sexual energy and meditate with it and store it and move it, the better it is for you, for your overall health, okay? Now I could get all spiritual and say, it's a time to connect with yourself. But I think you guys all know that. So I think I've said what I need to say. I say release the shame around it. If you're somebody who has shame around it, really ask yourself why. Where is that coming from? Is that coming from religion? Is it coming from trauma? It's a good time to check in with yourself, because remember, your body belongs to you. The genitals are a part of our body. It's not something dirty, okay? So I think that releasing that kind of shame is important. And it could be healing, if you are going through certain things, connect with yourself, meditate on it. And I think I'm going to end this conversation now. I think I said everything I need to say. All right, people, have a great day. Bye.